This 1982 CJ Wrangler is somebody's play toy. Now, whose play toy is it? That's the cool part. This is Matt Mitrione's play toy. Matt Mitrione is a heavyweight fighter in Bellator, previously UFC, and before that he played in the NFL. He's actually a local guy also. He lives about 20 miles away from me, and I have done his Toyota Avalon. I did his car, we blacked it out, did a stereo system, did a bunch of stuff to it, and now we talked about this Wrangler about 2 years ago. So he's dropped it off at my shop, and he just basically wants to have it set up to be a fun sounding system, nothing crazy. It's for him to take his kids out because it's going to be fall soon and he wants to enjoy it. So what we got is, the previous shops have done this. I don't have a problem with the speakers down there. I mean, in these Jeeps, you really have no speaker provisions. There's nowhere to put speakers. So a lot of people will do this down here. So I don't really have a problem with it. I might have a problem with how it's in there. I haven't really dug into it. The head unit, Kenwood, I don't know. He said it doesn't work. He said it burned up. I guess the shop did it. He had problems with it. He took it back to the shop. They redid it, and then he said it burned itself up. So I don't know what's going on there, but we're going to yank it out, put it on the test bench, see if it's shot. Obviously, probably do a ton of rewiring here. So his last resort, because his radio wasn't working, was he went and bought this JBL tower, which, you know, hooks onto the roll bar there, and it's all Bluetooth. So those are pretty cool, and they're not real cheap. He's having major problems with this thing, and this is the second one. He called JBL, returned the first one, and got this one. The problem he's having is Bluetooth sync. He is listening to music, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And then maybe 30 seconds later it'll come back, and then it's gone. So his Bluetooth is actually losing sync with this, which is a horrible thing since that's the only reason he wants it. So me personally, I don't really see the point in keeping this, because on top of that, his kids are hitting their head on it. So I'm gonna yank that out of there, let him send that back and get his money back, because I think we can fix this system and make it right. Back here, it looks like he has 6x9 boxes there. And he said something about having 6x9s boxes that go here. I have a feeling I know what he's talking about. We are not going to do that. I do not want those cheesy 6x9 boxes there. So what's in my mind, we are going to yank this head unit, drop in one of the new Sony high-powered head units. Those high-powered head units are pretty badass. They put out a ton of power, and it will save us from having to put an amp in here. The Sony head unit is basically a 4-channel amplifier. They're like 45x4, and I think they max out at 100x4. And they're 2 ohm stable. So what we can do is do a Sony high power head unit here. We're going to yank out those speakers. We may go with Polks, but not those Polks. I don't have any idea what kind of abuse those have been through. I'm going to look at that piece that's built right there. If I hate it, I'm going to rebuild it. If it's not bad, I'm going to build it and make it better. And we'll probably go ahead and rhino line it. Up here, I don't know if I can get speakers anywhere. The kick panels, I don't know. We're just going to have to look, but I think those are going to be the only speaker options up here in the front. So we'll do the speakers there. We're going to take that down. We will keep those speakers there, but we're going to change them out with new speakers, 6x9s. And then up here, we're going to use the composite material, and we're going to build something that looks like it's supposed to be here. If you follow me on Facebook, you may have remembered a Jeep that I just did for a guy with some Cadence speakers. I built this whole rack across here that held all the speakers, and it was pretty badass. Do the same thing here, but just for one pair of speakers. He also says with his family in the back, he rubs. So his suspension is dropping down and rubbing. So we are going to look into, we found a helper bag kit for this, so we're going to go ahead and look into putting a helper bag kit on here so he can put air in there and lift that Jeep up and make the ride a whole lot better. That is Matt Mitrione's Jeep Wrangler. We will make this episode 1 of In the Shop. Now I need to get the camera set up and me start tearing this thing apart. So I've just taken out what can best be called some piece of crap contraption. So that's what I'm left with here. The contraption is pretty fancy. I thought maybe this would be something that could be salvaged or used, but no. No, no, hell to the nose, no. And he has a fuel gauge here, which isn't hooked up, just kind of hanging out there. So, I guess when you're doing a car for somebody who's pretty famous, Matt Mitrione, he's more famous than I am. When you're doing a car for a famous guy, this is what you get. Cool. So what we're gonna do after we clean up that wiring under there, redo it, we're gonna lay some chop mat. We're gonna make a fiberglass mold of that transmission hump so we can have a solid base and a floor. And then we are going to mold actual speaker pods that are enclosed so the speakers can actually give you some output and do what they're supposed to. Maybe even find some mid-range and mid-bass in this thing. Question is now, do I want to fit 2 6.5s there, or should I go for 4 5 1/4s? Let's get some measurements. So now we got the interior pulled out, got the transmission hump all taped off, got a layer of paper tape on the bottom, vinyl tape on top. Now I'm going to trace off the base with a Sharpie of what I want the shape to be. Get some chop mat and resin, lay that up, and we will have a mold that will be the base of our speaker pod. All right, so we're back in the shop. We got Matt Mitrione's Jeep Wrangler sitting here. We've been waiting on parts to come in. It looks like everything is finally here. We've got a custom center console that is a lockbox and also will relocate the radio to the center console. It's all metal, the whole thing's solid steel, so looks pretty nice. Hopefully everything goes in well with this. I was going to fiberglass the transmission hump. You saw me taping it off and I was going to do a mold. Well, a company got a hold of me, a buddy I know, told me that they make it already. So they already make a pod right here that goes on the transmission hump to hold the 2 speakers. Work smarter, not harder. So I went ahead and got this because that'll shave off a lot of time and I can get Matt's Jeep back to him quicker. We got the Sony radio, we got the speakers, we've got the pocket kit from American International. This is what we're going to put in place of the hole in the dash since we're relocating the radio here to the console. We're going to put in a pocket so we can throw his phone up there. We got in some cup holders, which is for a surprise, which you guys will see later that I'm doing. And then we also have his air ride. I will not be putting on his air ride because my shop, the ceilings are too low, therefore I don't have a lift and I don't do suspension work like that. So I will be taking, after I'm done with the Jeep, over to Troy Anderson, who owns Anderson Restoration in Dayton, Indiana. He is going to put on the air ride, and I believe him and Matt have talked about repainting the hood and doing some paint work on the Jeep also. So my job is, today is Friday, I want to have this thing buttoned up and done no later than Sunday, hopefully by tomorrow. But we might have a wrench thrown in there. Matt called me yesterday. I also did his Toyota Avalon. Blackout, full everything, it's loaded Avalon. Looks like somebody tried to steal his radio. And I can't think of a worse situation than trying to steal an MMA professional fighter, heavyweight, right, for UFC, Bellator, and you're trying to steal his radio. Idiotic. So, somebody did try to steal it. He sent me pictures. They tried to pry the radio out of the dash, which was never going to work, never going to happen. So obviously they were idiots. But the radio is now twisted in his dash. The screen won't open. So he said he's going to bring that by today. So I'm going to have to jump off the Jeep and try to repair the damage that was done to his Avalon. Then I get done with that, I'll jump back on the Jeep. So I'm hoping to have the Jeep done by tomorrow. But it may be Sunday depending on how long the Avalon takes. So let's go ahead and get into this until he gets here with the Avalon. First thing we're going to do is get this wiring nightmare that's going on in this Jeep. We got to get it cleaned up, yank out everything that doesn't need to be here, and then put all new wiring in for the audio system and figure out how we're going to do the wire runs to the console. Let's get into this. So with all audio systems, one of the main things with an audio system is the wiring, your electrical. If the electrical is bad, then the system's bad no matter what you put in the vehicle. Matt's Jeep it's a mess, it's a nest. It's a wiring nightmare. So the first thing we need to do is follow all this audio wiring back and see where we can get to the original wiring. I need the original wiring, and then off there we'll solder in some new lines, and we will, man, it's a spider web. We'll solder in some new wire, make it actually bundled up like it should be, rather than this has probably been cut 10, 20 times in its life. So we got to clean all this up. Then one of the hardest things about this is going to be trying to mount the new speakers in the factory locations here, because they're backloaded with nuts and it's going to be a pain in the ass. But once we get the wiring cleaned up, we'll put the new speakers in and we'll drop those wires, and then we got to figure out how we want to run the wiring. As you can see, the tape here from when I was going to fiberglass, but don't need to now because we have the pod. So we need to mount the pod also and figure out the wiring. Since this vehicle has no trim, no carpet, there's nowhere to hide anything, all the wiring has to be loomed or somehow wrapped to look nice and neat. So that's one of the hardest things. It looks like this isn't even hooked up. I'm gonna come across a lot of things that aren't hooked up. I'm gonna try and repair issues as I come across. This looks like some kind of heater vent or something that's not hooked up properly anymore. I can easily just slip that right over there and have that fixed. So might as well fix stuff for the guy while I'm at it. Cool, let's get into this. So Mr. Matt Mitrione brought in his Avalon, which I did everything in this car as well. Somebody, as I said earlier, was dumb enough to try and steal his radio. So by looking at it, it looks like they might have broke the dash kit. They tried to pry the radio out, and you can't just pry the radio out in this car. I mean, you're not going to get it. So all they did was damage it, and they busted the radio to where it's pushed all the way over the side here. It is a motorized face, so the face won't open because the radio is all jacked. So I need to pull this off, see what kind of damage was done, see if we can fix it, and then get him out of here, and then get back over onto his Jeep and get back to work on it. They had broke off a couple of the screws on the side on the kit, so the radio was sitting all funky, but now it's on. It seems to be opening. Closing. Looks like we're good. That fixed it, so not a huge deal, just takes up time. Let me get this thing back together and then we get back onto the Jeep. All right, so we have gotten quite a ways with Matt's Jeep here. We have the speaker pods in the front there. They're wired up. Need to mount the speakers. We have the speakers behind the factory locations on each side of the dash. We have the center console installed. It's got a lock box. Then right here, this opens. We have the new Sony radio installed. The 6x9 pods that he already had, we repainted and re-rhino lined, so they look nice and new. They're installed. All the wiring. We relocated his engine management which we found behind the dash down here so he can actually get to it. And all the wiring has been cleaned up. So all in all, pretty good place. So now we need to build our speaker pods that are gonna go up here on each side. They're gonna hold a pair of 6x9s. Get them built, rhino lined and installed. Put the seats in and this baby is done. So let's go ahead and get going. All right, so yesterday was a long day. I built these speaker pods here. Put little cup holders on there for his kids. So he's got the 6x9s there, and he's got the 6x9s there. Originally I was going to build these out of fiberglass, but then I realized the kids are going to be sitting back here, they're going to be putting their arms on them, they're going to be pushing their weight up on them to get out. I was just afraid of doing fiberglass. So I built these out of wood, body filled them, did all the seams, and then I shot them with trunk bed liner. They didn't come out too bad. I'm not real happy with the trunk bed liner. I really wish I had more texture. As you can see, like in the shots, how it looks kind of shiny. It's smoother than what I wanted. I wanted it to be, you know, rough, kind of like that right there. But so Rust-Oleum truck bed liner. It says textured. Not really. It's not really what I wanted. So it'll work. It'll serve the purpose here, but it's not as textured, so it doesn't look as cool as I thought it would. But there's the rear end. Now I need to mount those down, install the 6x9s, and pull down his old speaker bar up here. He's going to return that, and then put the seats in, put the pocket right there, and I am done. It looks like I'm done. Go ahead and turn the key on here. Got the Sony radio. Got his lock box. Let's go ahead and change source here.
Ready to go. Hi, I'm Paul. Isn't it nice when you can keep things simple?
Everything sounds good.
When you switch to Sprint, you can get both an unlimited plan and the all
5 1/4 there, 5 1/4 there, 5 1/4 there. 6x9, 6x9.
And now offering a new
got cup holders now in the back.
Guarantee. I mean, I think Sprint's now.
I think we can button this baby up. Okay, so we are done with Matt Mitrione's Jeep. It was not really that bad. The biggest struggles was the previous shop that had worked on it just did subpar work. The wiring was atrocious. Nothing was the right gauge. Everything was just a mess. So once I got the Jeep stripped out and down to basically the bare metal, got everything out of there, pulled out all the wiring, we were able to basically start over, run all new wiring and get it done. All in all, the Jeep went well. I think he's gonna be happy with it. At least I hope he is. The last thing I want is a 6'5", 250 pound plus professional heavyweight fighter pissed off. So I hope he's happy with it. Now we're gonna get this to the other shop where I did purchase an air ride for this. He has an airlift air suspension going on this Jeep because the ass end's kind of saggy, run on leaf springs. We're gonna put the air ride in, but that is gonna be done at the other shop who's also gonna be doing the paint work, which is Troy Anderson, Anderson Restoration in Dayton, Indiana. Give him a little bit of plug. But I don't have lifts here, so I can't really put the suspension on easily, and I don't want to risk doing it half-assed since you kind of need lifts and you got to drop everything to put those on. It's hard for me to make these videos because honestly I just want to get the cars done. Taking the time to stop and set up the camera and record and do all that, it's just very foreign to me. But I do get a lot of people that ask me about what I do here and why I don't ever post anything. So this is Cape Sykes with Custom Audio Reimagined. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.